And if not, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one, it's not going to be great.
Right. Yeah. Hello, I'm Dr. Becky Lynn, and I'm an obstetrician gynecologist who specializes in sexual problems in women. I'm here today with my friend Braxton, who works with my husband, and we are just going to talk about some sexual myths that are out there, and kind
And
of
drink some wine, which is the most important part of
and
this. Yeah. It's a nice Friday night here in St. Louis, so it's perfect.
It is. It's actually really nice, and hopefully this weekend will be in the 50s.
But,
so
you're the one that's going to run 20
I know.
miles tomorrow, not me.
I'm running 20 miles tomorrow. I'm healthy. Either that or I'm crazy. So
No comment. I think one of the things that we've talked about before is other sexual myths, like regarding the size of your penis. Like,
yes.
what is that? Like, what exactly matters to a woman?
Right.
What exactly is really important for sexual pleasure,
right.
and what is not?
So the penis is not really important for sexual pleasure for a woman, so guys can forget about that. It's all about the clitoris. The clitoris is where all the nerve endings are for a woman. A lot of sexual pleasures there. Not to say that penetration doesn't feel good, that women don't want to do that. It brings you close together. But I think there's definitely one myth about the length of a man's penis. And it's not always the length of a man's penis that makes a big difference. It's really the girth or the width of the penis, because that's the part that sort of touches the surrounding vagina and stimulates the surrounding vagina. And remember, the clitoris is more than just that little nubbin that you see. It also extends on the anterior vagina and goes around the opening. So like a wider penis stimulates the clitoris when it goes in and out. And people have no idea about that.
Very true.
Yeah.
So like, how do you think, I think for most part, my generation is a little bit more sexually forward than probably the previous was, just because of access to information, pornography. I wouldn't say health classes, because I don't think most health classes do even scratch the surface of sexual health.
They do a horrible job.
Yes.
Horrible job.
So, like, how do you think that this generation varies from maybe the last generation or even the previous generation regarding to that myth in particular?
Regarding the penis size?
Yeah, maybe just in like, I mean, I don't think there's like a study out there that really says it.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, but like in your experience, like, I mean, you see a lot of patients,
yeah,
and you see a lot of women in particular, and so how do you think that like their perception of penis size is important to?
I think that women put less emphasis on penis size. I really do, because I see patients all day, every day with sexual problems, and it is not one of the most common sexual issues. It's uncommon for women to come in and be like, my partner is too small, because the vagina is really stretchy. And so the vagina is actually a potential space. It's like a collapsed tube, and then when something goes in it, it sort of surrounds whatever's in it, and there are muscles also that surround the vagina. So it's like the actual vaginal tissue and then the muscles that surround it. So it stretches to accommodate whatever size. But back to your question, I think that women just don't, in general, this is not true for everybody, but don't focus on penis size as much as men do.
And you think it's just something, I always envision of women in, let's just say, use a locker room for an example.
Okay.
Talking about ex-spouse or ex-boyfriend's size. Does that happen?
Not that I've heard. I'm trying to think if the last time, I mean, no, I don't know. I don't hear a lot. Well, I don't think women are as open about their,
Because I know, like, I'm sure, like, I know guys
size.
probably talk about it.
Oh, sure.
Like,
sure.
often. I think that is a conversation that usually is had. And it's more in a joking manner than anything. But I think that is definitely something that is definitely talked about.
Yeah. And going back to, like, the age difference, I think as far as, like, what women talk about, the older age group I see in my patients, and they're still having sex. And they're still having issues, and they tend to have more issues because of age, but they're really much more hesitant to talk about it, like you said, than the younger women. And even some younger women are hesitant to talk about it. It just depends on what you were taught about sex. If you were taught it was gross and don't do that,
or not taught at all, which I feel like a lot of, I mean, I went to public school, but I feel like a lot of people that were in private school were not talked about it. They were talked, the birds and the bees taught maybe by their parents, but I mean, even if they were, it was probably a not till marriage conversation instead of, you know, what exactly it is.
Yeah, and that's a huge deal for me because I think that girls, especially in school, they're taught about their periods, they're taught about how not to get pregnant, how not to get a sexually transmitted infection. But nobody talks about, hey, this is pleasurable. This is part of a normal, healthy relationship. Sex feels good. You might do this because it feels good. Like, it doesn't always have to be around pregnancy or avoiding pregnancy, but I think that that's part of the whole sort of, for lack of a better word, slut shaming. That tell I grew up with brothers, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I grew up with 5 sisters, so you know, I understood the, you know, 2 older, much younger. And like, just even like when they would, you know, be with boyfriends, it was totally different than when I was. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, but like here's a prime example. I heard a conversation once between some guys, and they were talking about a girl, and the discussion was, oh, he's just using her for sex. He's just using her for sex. And I thought to myself, how do we know she's not using him for sex? Why does he have to be using her? What if they just both want to have sex and feel good? Why do we have to say somebody's getting used? And that really, really, truly bothered me.
That's something that's, I mean, it still happens. I have those conversations happen. Yeah. It's either a slut, and now it's become a man whore, but a man whore doesn't have the same connotations as a slut or, you know, somebody that sleeps around as a woman does.
Right.
Which is something we can get into at another time.
This whole opens the door into toxic masculinity and like, ooh, very charged conversation. But
so I don't know what else other myths that you have, but I mean.
So the other biggest myth that I've talked about on my other YouTube videos is that women orgasm all the time from vaginal penetration. That is so not true. And the movies perpetuate that myth, and it drives me crazy. You see the movies, man and woman making love, they both reach orgasm at the same time.
So it's not like 50 Shades of Grey, that's what you're telling me.
Yeah, definitely not like, I mean, it can be like 50 Shades of Grey. If you want to do that, that's totally fine. But definitely where they just orgasm and roll off each other and it's over. So, you know, women, it's all about the clitoris. The clitoris is, like I said, it's where it's at. And this idea that all women can orgasm vaginally is totally false. Some women can, but not all women can. Or they can...
What would you say, like, I mean, if you had is there a percentage, or is it just like, I mean, is it just like, you know, what is it?
Yeah, I would say that probably 50 to 60% can't orgasm from vaginal penetration. Now, sometimes a woman can have vaginal penetration plus clitoral stimulation, like with a hand at the same time, or a vibrator. And that can lead to orgasm while there's penetration going on, but it's much less likely to happen, and it's much less likely to happen as you get older. But the other thing is, men think that it should be happening. So a man might say to a woman, you know, oh, all my other partners orgasmed, I got them all, you know, my other partners were able to do this and you can't. And what I will say is women fake it. It is true. Not everybody.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Shocker.
Shocker, but women do fake it from time to time, and then it's a big problem when they do, because they feel unfulfilled. They really want to orgasm, but now they're embarrassed or afraid to say to their partner, hey, that was a fake. You really need to do this to me to get me to reach orgasm.
So, I guess what advice would you give, I guess, women? Because in my opinion, I mean, a lot of times I'm oblivious. I would have no idea between fake or real. So, I mean, let's be honest. You could fool me in the moment. It's like, okay, I'm fine. I guess I'm assuming you're fine as well.
Right.
So, like, what is, like, the first, like, steps to, like, I guess, I mean, the myth is never going to be squashed, because I don't feel like we're ever going to talk about sex openly in the society. Hopefully soon. It becomes more and more things like this. But, like, I don't know, like, I guess for me, it's just like, how do you start that conversation? Do you just say it in the moment? Do you ask afterwards? You know, like, what advice would you give women? Because in my opinion, I'm obviously doing this, so I'm much more sexually open than probably most guys are, and probably most people in general. But like, how would you give both sexes like the advice to kind of ask, you know, are you I guess for the lack of a better word, satisfied in our sexual relationship?
So I think communication is key. I think women need to say, no, not like that. I like this. This works for me, and be open and not ashamed of saying, I like it when you do this. I think that's really important. I think women feel ashamed, or they think, oh, it's just all for the man, which is so not true. And so the woman has to be open about what she likes, and it's difficult sometimes, but not be embarrassed about saying, this is what works for me. And the man, the same thing, should be open with communication and not take it personally that if they don't get you to reach orgasm vaginally, that like, oh, I'm not a good lover now. Not true.
Yeah.
Not take it personally or as an affront to their manhood, but to listen to what she has to say and be like, oh, okay, I'm going to try this. Let's try that and let's explore. So communication is really key, but I know that's hard for a lot of people just because we keep it
we don't
so
talk about
hush-hush.
it. Yeah. And
Silly.
I mean, like, let's be honest, sex is fun. And so I think it's fun for most people, but I think some people are just like, even the act of doing it is shameful. Talking about it is instantly like,
right.
I mean, you're going to be chained on the town square and thrown stones at. So I think, just from personal experiences of some people talking about it.
Right,
but, yeah.
right. No, it's true. And I find it interesting how there are some communities that are so ashamed about sex, and there are other communities that are more vocal and open and, able to talk about it. But it really has, you can't change the family you grew up with. And so whatever you were taught about it really sticks with you for a long time.
I think that's really true. And the thing is with me for sex, and the reason I'm doing this, this is our first time, and I think this is the reason I'm doing it, is because it's so, I don't want to use that term, so it's so pushed aside. Yes. Sex is so pushed aside when it's such a crucial part of our lives, of our culture, of our media, of our even our news. You look at news anchors. they can't be sexed up unless if they're a nightly news anchor. So I think those are things that, if we can start having those conversations, you look at cultures, like you said, different cultures like Europe. They're much more sexually forward than we are, and so having these myths kind of squashed, I think, are really important.
So I think it's the Netherlands where, like, when you're in 7th grade, instead of having this "don't get pregnant" talk, "this is your period," they have a talk about, and they have a more realistic talk about sex is part of a healthy relationship. Sex is about pleasure. It's closeness with your partner. And their sex ed is so much better than what we have here. And it's really, I know people disagree with me out there, but it's really a shame to sort of hide it in, oh, it's bad, because it's not bad.
Yeah, no.
That's why we're all still here.
Is there anything else? Or is that it, you think, for our first?
I think that's pretty good for our first round.
We covered 3 good myths.
We did.
And a lot of other things on the sidebars, I think. So, but I appreciate you having me in your home.
Sure.
It's been a lot of fun.
I'm glad you
thanks for the wine.
It was delicious.
Which is always the best part. Cheers.
Yep.
Until next time.
All right.